They didn't just arrest him. They manufactured the crime. A gun that was never his. A report that was never true. And an oath sworn on the Bible that was nothing but a lie. To Sergeant Derek Vance, this was just another statistic, another name to pad his arrest numbers. Another black man he assumed would never fight back. What he didn't realize was that the man in handcuffs wasn't powerless. He didn't know the traffic stop was bait. He didn't know the silence was intentional. And he definitely didn't know that every word he spoke was being recorded, live, straight to Washington. This is the story of what happens when a corrupt cop lies under oath. And the defendant calmly reveals an FBI badge in open court. Tuesday night, November 14th. Cold rain clung to the streets, turning every shadow darker and every lie easier to sell. Streetlights flickered as if even they were tired of watching the same stories repeat. The city was quiet, but not peaceful. Marcus Thorne drove slowly through 4th Street in his worn Honda Accord. Hands steady on the wheel. Speed exactly within the limit. Headlights clean. Brake lights working. Registration valid. He had checked everything twice before leaving. Still, the flashing red and blue lights appeared behind him. Sudden, aggressive, unavoidable. Marcus exhaled. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't nervous. If anything, he was disappointed it took them this long. He had been waiting 3 days for this exact moment. Sergeant Derek Vance. To city officials, Vance was a model officer. Record-breaking drug arrests, polished boots, commendations framed on the wall. To the south side, he was something else entirely. A name mothers warned their sons about. A badge that meant trouble. Marcus slowed, signaled, and pulled over beneath a broken streetlight. Engine off. Seatbelt released. Window down. Every move deliberate. Every second counted. License and registration. Vance snapped, flashlight cutting across Marcus's face. No greeting. No explanation. Just authority. Marcus blinked against the harsh beam, but kept his voice calm. It's in the glove compartment, officer. I'm going to reach for it slowly. Vance didn't respond. His hand hovered near his weapon, not out of fear, but habit. Behind him stood his rookie partner. Young. New boots. Eyes darting between Marcus and the wet pavement. Marcus could see the conflict on his face. This was the moment where lessons became choices. Marcus retrieved his wallet and passed over his ID. Vance studied it longer than necessary. Name, Marcus Thorne. Occupation, consultant. Vance's lips curled into a smirk. Consultant, huh, he muttered. Then louder, step out of the car. I smell weed. A lie so old it barely required creativity. A phrase rehearsed so many times it sounded natural. Rain soaked Marcus's hoodie as he stepped out and placed his hands on the hood. Cold metal. Cold air. Cold silence. In the reflection of the wet paint, Marcus watched carefully. Vance didn't search the car first. Didn't ask questions. Didn't call anything in. Instead, he turned slightly away. And Marcus saw it. Vance didn't reach into the car. He reached into himself. 3 seconds. That's all it took. A gun appeared. Then a small bag of white powder. Well, Vance chuckled, holding them up like trophies. Possession with intent. Illegal firearm. The rookie stiffened. Sergeant, he started, then stopped. I said bag it. Vance snapped without turning. The rookie hesitated, just long enough to feel it. Then he obeyed. And just like that, another brick was added to the wall of silence. Cold steel cuffs snapped shut around Marcus's wrists. As Vance leaned in, confident and satisfied, Marcus met his eyes. Calm, unafraid, almost sympathetic. Make sure you spell my name correctly, Sergeant. Vance laughed. What he didn't know was that the button on Marcus's hoodie wasn't plastic, and that every second of this encounter was already uploading. Encrypted, time-stamped, undeniable. 3 months later, courtroom 4B didn't just smell like old wood. It smelled like decisions already made. The benches were full. Journalists lined the back wall. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but everyone knew this case mattered. Another black man. Another traffic stop. Another found weapon. Marcus Thorne sat at the defense table, hands folded, eyes lowered. Not because he was afraid, because that's what they expected. He wore no suit that screamed money. No expensive watch. No confidence that made people uncomfortable. Just a plain jacket. Neutral posture. Perfect restraint. Across the room, Sergeant Derek Vance sat straight-backed in his uniform. Polished badge. Clean haircut. The picture of authority. The jury noticed him first. They always did. The prosecutor, Thomas Keller, paced confidently before them. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said smoothly, "this case is simple." He gestured toward Marcus. "A routine traffic stop. A suspicious driver. A dangerous weapon removed from the streets. Routine. Suspicious. Dangerous. Words chosen carefully. Words that had worked 100 times before. Then came Sergeant Vance's testimony. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. His voice was steady. Too steady. He was nervous, Vance said. Hands shaking. Smelled strongly of marijuana. Marcus didn't react. He became aggressive when asked to step out. "I feared for my safety." The prosecutor nodded sympathetically. "And where was the firearm found?" "Under the driver's seat." Vance replied without hesitation. "Lie. And the narcotics?" "In his jacket pocket." Another lie. Each sentence dropped into the courtroom like wet concrete, hardening into something permanent. The jury scribbled notes. A woman in the front row frowned. A man nodded slowly. Bias didn't shout. It whispered. When the defense attorney stood, his voice lacked fire. "Officer, are you certain the weapon wasn't planted?" Vance didn't blink. "Absolutely." The defense tried again. "Any body cam footage?" "Camera malfunctioned." "Witnesses?" "My partner." "Predictable." "Clean." "Protected." The defense sat down. "Finished." A quiet murmur moved through the room. This was it. Another conviction loading. Then Marcus moved. He stood. The sound of the chair scraping echoed louder than it should have. "I would like to testify," he said calmly. The prosecutor froze. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Thorne," the judge warned. "You understand what this means?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Permission granted." Marcus walked to the stand, slowly, deliberately. Every step measured. He raised his right hand, took the oath, and sat. The prosecutor approached, already smiling. "Mr. Thorne," he said, "you expect this court to believe a decorated officer framed you?" Marcus met his eyes. "No," he said softly. "I expect the court to see it." The room shifted. Marcus reached into his jacket. Gasps rippled through the benches. The bailiff stiffened. But Marcus didn't pull out a weapon. He placed something on the desk. A badge. Gold. Federal. Heavy. It caught the light. "I am Senior Special Agent Marcus Thorne," he said clearly. "Public Corruption Unit. Federal Bureau of Investigation." Silence slammed into the courtroom. The judge's mouth fell open. The prosecutor stepped back instinctively. Vance's face drained of color. "For the past 18 months, Marcus continued, I have been investigating unlawful traffic stops, evidence planting, and racial profiling within this precinct." Murmurs exploded. The judge slammed the gavel. "Order." Marcus turned slightly. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to submit evidence." A technician approached. The screen lit up. Video. Clear. Sharp. Undeniable. Vance's flashlight. The planted gun. The bag pulled from his sleeve. Then audio. The rookie's voice, shaking. "He told me to bag it. He said this was how things were done." A woman in the jury covered her mouth. The prosecutor whispered, "Oh my God." Marcus wasn't finished. Time-stamped. Encrypted. Chain of custody intact. He looked directly at Vance. "You missed the button camera, Sergeant." Vance stood suddenly. "This is illegal," he shouted. "This is entrapment." The judge rose to his feet. "Sit down." Vance panicked. In one desperate moment, his authority collapsed. He bolted. The courtroom erupted. He made it 3 steps. Federal agents emerged from the side doors. Hands on shoulders. Cuffs clicking shut. The same sound Marcus heard months ago. As Vance was dragged away, Marcus spoke one last time. "This court almost convicted an innocent man," he said calmly. "Not because of lack of evidence, but because of trust placed where it didn't belong." The judge's voice trembled. Case dismissed. The gavel fell. And for the first time that day, justice wasn't blind. It was awake. By the time the federal agents filled the courtroom, the outcome was no longer in doubt. The case hadn't collapsed. It had imploded. Sergeant Derek Vance stood in handcuffs, no longer a symbol of authority, but a reminder of how easily power rots when no one is watching closely enough. The uniform that once commanded fear and obedience now looked like a costume stripped of meaning. The room was silent, not because people were told to be quiet, but because everyone was processing the same realization. This could have ended very differently. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply sat down. Because the badge didn't save him. Patience did. Weeks earlier, Marcus had been stopped like thousands before him. If he had revealed his identity that night, the officer would have laughed it off, torn up the report, and moved on to the next target. Another innocent person would have paid the price. Another lie would have lived another day. So Marcus stayed silent, not out of fear, but strategy. He let the lie grow big enough to expose itself. Because injustice depends on one thing above all else: people believing no one is watching. And that belief had just been shattered. The judge removed his glasses slowly, staring at the empty space where the defendant had stood only minutes before. In decades on the bench, he had seen criminals cry, lie, beg, and bargain, but he had never witnessed a system convict itself in real time. The jury members avoided each other's eyes. Some felt relief. Others felt shame. Not because they were bad people, but because they realized how close they had come to doing something irreversible based on assumptions instead of truth. Outside the courthouse, the story exploded. By nightfall, the footage was everywhere. Headlines didn't read, "Officer arrested." They read, "How many more? How long has this been happening? Who else was silenced?" Internal Affairs reopened dozens of cases. Convictions were reviewed. Charges were dropped. Careers quietly ended. Not with sirens, but with resignation letters. Marcus returned to work the next day like nothing had changed. No interviews. No victory speeches. Because to him, this wasn't a win. It was correction. And correction is rarely comfortable. That night, alone in his apartment, Marcus placed the badge back in its drawer. He sat in the silence, replaying the moment the cuffs clicked shut around Vance's wrists. Not with satisfaction, but with clarity. Power doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks confident. Sometimes it looks routine. And the most dangerous lies are the ones delivered calmly, under oath, in rooms where everyone assumes the truth is being told. Marcus knew one thing for certain. The system didn't change because one man was exposed. It changed because someone refused to interrupt a lie too early. Because sometimes, the most effective way to fight injustice isn't to shout. It's to listen, document, and wait until the truth becomes undeniable. Vance underestimated silence. He mistook restraint for weakness, patience for fear, and that mistake cost him everything. Because when power assumes no one is paying attention, that's exactly when the truth is taking notes. And this time, the truth showed up to court. There are moments in history that don't announce themselves with explosions or headlines. They arrive quietly. A routine traffic stop, a courtroom full of tired faces, a system doing what it has always done because no one expected it to be questioned. Marcus didn't win because he was louder. He didn't win because he was stronger. He didn't win because someone suddenly showed mercy. He won because he understood something most people never do. Power depends on impatience. It depends on people reacting too fast, speaking too soon, revealing themselves before the truth is fully formed. The system is designed to move quickly. Quick arrests, quick judgments, quick assumptions. And those who suffer the most are often the ones who never get the time to explain who they are. Marcus took that time back. He didn't interrupt the lie. He let it finish talking. Because lies collapse under their own weight when they are allowed to grow without resistance. What happened that night wasn't just about one officer or one arrest. It was about how easily authority becomes habit, how often trust replaces verification, how silence is mistaken for consent. The scariest injustice isn't loud or violent. It's quiet, routine, official. It happens in well-lit rooms, under rules, with signatures and stamps. While everyone assumes someone else is paying attention, Marcus was paying attention. He understood that real power doesn't rush to be seen. It waits. It watches. It documents. And when the moment comes, it doesn't argue. It reveals. The truth doesn't need emotion to be devastating. It only needs timing. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't shout. It simply stands there, undeniable, forcing everyone else to explain themselves. That's why the courtroom went silent. Not because justice had arrived, but because people realized how close they had been to letting injustice walk free. This story isn't about heroes and villains. It's about responsibility. About asking questions even when the answers are uncomfortable. About refusing to accept "that's just how it works" as an excuse. Because systems don't fail on their own. They fail when good people stop paying attention. Marcus didn't change the world that night. He changed the direction it was heading. And sometimes, that's the most powerful kind of justice there is.